Today we're getting into Woody Allen's 1979 film Manhattan.
A classic.
Absolutely. And we've got some great material to work with. Roger Ebert's original review, a BFI retrospective piece, something from American cinematographer on the look of the film, which is key,
A film.
and an art critic's perspective on its artistic merit. So our goal here is really to unpack why this film still resonates, what makes it stand out as this unique artistic achievement.
Well, you have to start with the opening, don't you? It's just so potent.
Oh, completely. It's
Yeah.
unforgettable. You hear Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, that swell of music, and you see those incredible black and white shots of the city.
Iconic.
And then, just as you're taking that in, Woody Allen's voice comes in. It's kind of hesitant. Chapter 1.
Yeah.
And Ebert made such a great point about that, how we almost laugh instantly at Chapter 1 because we already know the Woody persona so well. It's like we supply half the joke ourselves.
That's spot on. Our familiarity with that persona is doing a lot of the heavy lifting right from the start. Why do you think that persona is so crucial right at the beginning?
Well, like Ebert suggests, it's almost like a shortcut, isn't it? It gives the film this immediate depth, even if maybe some character bits feel a little sketchier than in other movies.
Right.
We recognize that anxious, intellectual, self-doubting guy, and it fills in the blanks, creates that connection. It sets a certain mood, a certain expectation that the film then, well, plays with.
Definitely. And speaking of things central to the film, New York City itself.
Yes. Let's dive into that. The art critic piece really emphasized this, saying the city isn't just a background. It gets elevated to like mythical status, a living, breathing character, even a visual work of art. How does the film actually do that? Make the city feel like so much more than just, buildings.
A huge part of it is Gordon Willis and his whole concept of capturing a romantic reality of New York.
Yeah.
In black and white.
Right. He famously said he felt the city existed in black and white and pulsed to Gershwin.
Exactly. It wasn't just about making it look cool, though it does. It was about capturing an essence he felt was inherent to the place. And think about those specific shots the art critic points out, the Queensboro Bridge.
Right.
Those huge skyscrapers kind of looming over people, Central Park in the snow, the little streets in Greenwich Village. They're not just scenic, they're part of the emotional fabric. Ebert even mentioned the mighty bridges leaping out. It's got this real visual power.
And it's fascinating that Willis chose Panavision widescreen, that really wide 2.35:1 ratio.
Yeah.
That wasn't typical then. What did that wider frame bring to the table for depicting New York?
Well, Willis himself said it was about the graphic potential. It allowed him to really show people within the massive scale of the city. You get these amazing compositions, tiny figures against this huge urban landscape.
Yeah.
It emphasizes their place, maybe their smallness, or maybe their struggle within it all.
Which leads us perfectly into talking about the black and white itself, that power it has. The art critic called it a deliberate and fundamental artistic choice. Stripping away color, forcing focus on form, texture.
Exactly that. Architectural shapes, street textures, the play of light and shadow, that sense of scale we just mentioned. It wasn't just, oh, let's shoot in black and white. It was core to the artistic vision.
Willis talked about his approach too, didn't he? Something about selectivity.
Yeah, choosing carefully what to show and maybe more importantly, how to light it to really serve the story. He aimed for a romantic, charming, and good-looking. It sounds simple, but it was a very conscious crafting of the look.
And it's kind of wild to think he was doing this in the late 70s, early 80s, when black and white was really becoming rare. He even mentioned struggling with labs, like it was a lost art.
It really underscores how intentional it all was. And he was specific about the film stocks, too. Kodak XX for the negative, but then Agfa positive stock for the prints because it had more silver, apparently.
Giving richer blacks.
That's the idea. Richer, deeper blacks in the final image you saw in the theater. That level of technical thought just shows how meticulously they built the film's visual language.
Okay, let's weave in the other massive element, the music. Gershwin. Ebert goes so far as to call him the second most important person in this film. That's quite a statement.
It really is, but it feels true, doesn't it? Ebert also had that great insight about the contrast. You have this lush, seemingly simple, romantic music, summerful, embraceable you.
Yeah, classic American songbook stuff.
Right, and then you have the characters talking in these really complex, often neurotic, psychoanalysis-heavy ways about their relationships, their values. It's quite a clash. What kind of feeling does that contrast create for you as a viewer?
It feels ironic, maybe. It sort of highlights the gap between this grand ideal of love the music evokes and the messy, awkward reality the characters are living through. The music soaring, and they're like arguing about who gets the Webern records.
Huh, exactly. And the art critic sort of echoes that, calling the soundtrack the soul, the emotional pulse in another character. It captures everything, the energy, the romance, but also that underlying melancholy, the sophistication of New York. It's like the music represents this emotional ideal they're all fumbling towards.
Which brings us right to those core themes, relationships, and also a kind of societal critique. Ebert pointed out the film is less about the relationships themselves and more about what people say during them, how they can lie by technically telling the truth, that gap between words and meaning.
Yes, those fearsome distances, as you put it. The art critic expands on that, talking about the film exploring the complexities, often painful, of love, intellect, insecurity, the search for meaning. And there's definitely a satirical edge aimed at that specific New York intellectual, artistic crowd, right?
Oh, for sure. You see it in their conversations, their preoccupations.
And if you leap back to that Woody persona, a lot of the humor and the critique comes from seeing these often very smart people navigate very basic human problems. Fear of commitment, generational gaps, social hypocrisies, that constant search for happiness that seems to elude them.
So let's talk about the actors bringing these characters to life. Ebert's description of Woody Allen as Woody, sublimely, feels pretty accurate. And he loved Diane Keaton as that fresh and nicely edged New York intellectual.
Yes, and he made a really strong point about Mariel Hemingway as Tracy. Said she deserved some kind of award for making that May-December thing believable. He mentioned her grave intelligence and fierce pride.
That's interesting. The BFI review also had a good description of Isaac Allen's character, a peculiarly knowing innocent and a thoroughgoing New Yorker.
Yeah.
What do those descriptions suggest about these people?
It sounds like a mix of world weariness, but also maybe a naive or idealistic streak underneath, especially with Isaac and Tracy. The art critic chimed in too, praising the Allen-Keaton chemistry, Michael Murphy as the cheating friend, Meryl Streep making an impact in a smaller part, and again, highlighting Hemingway's subtle, moving, and surprisingly mature performance. It really shows how much rested on these actors making these, frankly, sometimes difficult characters feel real.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing to get into those specific scene breakdowns from Gordon Willis in that American cinematographer piece.
Yeah.
Like the opening shot of the bridge at dawn.
Right.
He deliberately underexposed it, used filters, just to create that specific mood right away. What does that signal about his method?
Incredible control and meticulous planning. He wasn't just capturing things, he was actively constructing the image, the feeling. Or think about that long night scene with Woody and Diane walking.
Oh, the tracking shot.
Yeah. The gear involved gimbal, dolly, a special lens called Dynalens to keep focus, and even a moving light on a dimmer to fake passing streetlights or store lights. And his idea of relative exposure, not just sticking to the meter, but lighting for the feeling of the scene, that's real artistry.
Even simpler scenes, like the one on the spiral staircase.
Right.
Willis used the wide frame, simple bounce light, worked with the practical lights. It all just adds up. And the Subway Yankee Stadium shot, balancing the dark subway with the bright stadium outside.
Again, using graduated filters or gels, technical problem solving in the service of the shot. It's impressive stuff.
And I still can't quite get over the planetarium sequence not being filmed in a planetarium.
I know. Using props, mirrors, matte shots, a blue screen, photographing the actors against pre-shot backgrounds. That detail about using Christmas tree lights and a mirror for stars, that's just ingenious filmmaking.
Pure magic, really.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up by thinking about the film's impact and how critics saw it then and now. Ebert, as we mentioned, was a bit mixed. Loved the start, less keen on the later serious stuff and the ending. He didn't think it topped Annie Hall, which some New York critics did. What do you make of that divided view?
It just shows that even masterpieces aren't universally loved in exactly the same way, you know? Taste is subjective. But then the BFI review gives it more consistent praise, calling it a mature harmony of humor and form, loving the actors, the script, seeing an evolution in Allen's persona.
Right.
And maybe the art critic kind of sums it up nicely by saying it's often seen as Allen's magnum opus, a film that just perfectly captured a time, a place, and a sensibility. It's that blend working together.
So yeah, as we finish this deep dive, it really feels like Manhattan holds up because it's this powerful mix. You've got the stunning visuals, that sharp, funny dialogue, the smart social observation, and that unforgettable music, all tied completely to New York. Its appeal seems to be in how honestly it looks at relationships, messy, complicated, neurotic, and that search for meaning. And it's all lifted, isn't it, by that deliberate black and white look in Gershwin's score.
Definitely. Which leaves us with maybe one last thing for you, the listener, to think about. Given how carefully Willis and Allen crafted this romantic reality, how does choosing black and white actually change how you perceive the characters' emotions, their struggles? Does it make them feel more timeless somehow in a way color wouldn't?
Yeah, and what does that suggest about the power of purely visual choices in storytelling? How much can just the look of a film shape our whole understanding of what's going on with the people and the world they're in? Something to chew on.